Alumni, thank you for coming. We're going to have some folks trickling in, but these are our friends over at Hardesty, and they participated at the college get down, and this is kind of a spin-off off of that event. And we're hopeful that, especially for the class of 17 and 18, as well through the class of 20, that we're able to cover some points when it comes to managing your academics, but in relation to your career goals, and some tips as to how to navigate your future career and interviewing, and what skills and industries are hot right now. And so without further ado, I want to welcome the Hardesty team, and they'll be leading this workshop and answering any questions that you have. Thank you, Tim, Angela, Scarlett, for being here today. We are very thankful for your support.
Good evening. And good evening, and welcome to all of you. I'm Tim DeCou. I'm the managing partner of Hardesty. We are a national recruiting firm and also a partnership of 45 partners that serve in interim C-suite kind of roles for companies. So somebody would call us and they need a chief financial officer, and we would put that person in there on a fairly rapid basis. So that's half our business, but the other half of our business is recruiting. And we recruit now in 40 states. So very interested in meeting to you today. Our focus today is talk about career readiness, job seeking, sort of the application interview process, resumes, social media, and then we'll have a little test for you at the end, with which is our contact information. But let's jump into career readiness. We'll cover a bunch of areas. Nora, I believe we have an opportunity here where we can maybe, we've organized this in the 5 goals, and then maybe at the end of that, end of each goal, we'll pause for some questions. How's that?
Yeah, that sounds great. Awesome.
So I'll sort of start this off, and then Scarlett and Angela, who are with me. Angela Hardesty is our healthcare partner and runs our clinical recruiting side of the business. She's based in Prescott, Arizona. And then Scarlett Mernique, which is her daughter, is our intern. She's in Phoenix and is currently a junior at ASU. So we thought we'd give you sort of a broad spectrum here. But let's jump into career readiness. So here's where we're going to be talking about the goal of the group was hey, how do you take your academic time and translate it into a job? And that's an important part, and that's where we'll chat a little bit about that. When we did this before, and I'll go through this real quickly, we talked about what some of the top jobs are. I'm not going to go through each one. We talked about the jobs with a degree. What is it? The top jobs that are out. This is just general. But then we talked about the best majors for jobs, or technical degrees, like many of the students we've seen from Samueli have, which is good. And also creative, items too, like the marketing and design, but then also the top 5 high-paying level jobs. If you notice, a petroleum engineer could come out of college making $85,000 to $105,000 a year. It's a really dangerous job. And my son, who's now early 30s, said to me when he was graduating from college, and this is when I knew he was starting to grow up. He goes, "Dad, I realized that the $100,000 a year jobs aren't necessarily out there for everybody." That's very true. He goes, "I better get a job," and that's what we're going to talk about today. But there's a lot of different kind of roles. If you notice, there's a common theme in this. If you have a degree with a technical attribute to it, they tend to you can develop sort of a niche, and they're very recruitable. But what if I don't fit into the numbers? What if I have a different kind of a major? Right now, we're going through the largest economic pivot of our lifetime. Many industries are disrupted. As we know, there's a new normal out there. I mean, this has all happened. You guys are living it. You are right in the middle of it. And disruption means opportunities for you. What we've seen is a lot of companies have come back and rebooted from COVID and are doing it with a leaner workforce. And that's created opportunities, and they're looking for younger people to come in and fill in some of those spots. So your hard work in the search, that's going to pay off. Before we jump into number 2, Any questions? There's probably not a lot of questions, I would think, on the career seeking or the need for it. But any questions, anybody? Or we'll move on to the next one. Okay, you have to unmute if you have a question. I'll give it a couple seconds. Okay, we'll go on. We'll go on to number 2. Then we're going to get more into the meat and potatoes. Now, here's where I expect questions. So, Angie, why don't you jump in and run with us on job seeking?
Okay, thanks, Tim, and welcome everybody. One of the best things that you can do at this point in your education and your career, I guess, and I consider your education pathway part of your career, is first to finish school and get that degree. There's really, it doesn't have to be one of the degrees that Tim talked about, but getting and completing your degree is such a significant thing when it comes to starting your professional career. So no matter what it takes, no matter what challenges you might be facing right now, even if you have to chip away at it over an extended period of time, or you've been faced with some unexpected circumstances, just hang in there, because it is still so very valuable. Then what you're looking at now is an environment where you can start networking. So you can go ahead and create your LinkedIn profile. You can start looking at what's out there, start looking at companies that you're interested in working for, and follow those companies on LinkedIn and check your LinkedIn. I know it's pretty glamorous when it comes to networking, but it is the premier networking device that recruiters and professionals use. So if you haven't done that, and we'll get into kind of the qualities of what that should look like for you, go ahead and get that taken care of, and then determine what, you can target the companies you want to work for now, and I would recommend doing that via LinkedIn. When you start applying for jobs, one of the things that you can do is, right now, it seems like everything is online. So go ahead and start looking, even if you don't actually do the applications or finish the application processes, if you start looking at what those target jobs that you're interested in your career, look at those questions and start developing what kind of a response that you want to make. It's very important. You've probably all had some sort of job already, whether it's a barista at Starbucks, or you're working at the grocery store, or you worked in fast food. All of those are extremely relevant experiences, and we'll get into like how you can pivot that experience to your advantage. But when you do apply, be very honest. Always use complete sentences when responding to a question. It's kind of, if you've ever taken a foreign language, your foreign language teacher won't let you just answer yes or no. You have to respond in the language with a complete sentence, so they know you know how to conjugate the verbs. Same thing with a job interview. If they ask you a question, respond in full sentences. And then when you get to the actual interview, walk in like you want the job. You've probably all been there before. I'm just assuming everybody here has had at least one job interview. But you show up with a positive attitude. Understand, maybe you can even connect with the manager that's going to be interviewing you on LinkedIn before, so you know a little bit about them. You can endear yourself to this person before you ever show up for the interview. Always take a paper copy of your resume to a face-to-face interview, even though these days a lot of them are on Zoom, but have them ready to email to that person if needed. If it's an in-person interview, take a piece of paper. Also, there's some really old school people out there from a certain generation, and when you walk into the interview, it's great to have a little manila folder and have your resume and have a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen so you can take notes. Let's see, where are we? Tim, my slide went away. There we go, application. So then just dress like you want to have the job. Obviously, no matter what the job you're applying for is, make sure that you're dressed professionally. If it's, always have, go in there clean cut, freshly showered, well groomed, hold yourself up straight, shake hands if it's socially distantly responsible at that point in your life, and practice an elevator speech. Now, what's an elevator speech? Well, there's more than one way to do this. You can do the 30-second elevator speech, the 1-minute elevator speech, or the 5-minute elevator speech. Each one of these elevator speeches has to be time for, maybe the short version is going to be who you are, why you're there, and that might be all the time you've got. The next one might be a little bit more of a personal detail. Another one might be a little bit more professional background and a personal detail. Oh, here's an example. Great. So here's an example of an elevator speech. Hi, my name is, I'm just going to wing this. Hi, my name is Angela. I am a IT analyst, and I'm seeking a career in healthcare IT. Let's see, okay. In the fall, I'll be graduating from University of Kansas with a major in healthcare administration, and I'm available for full-time employment on January the 1st. I worked my way to college as an analyst for my local hospital, and I have skills in Cerner, Epic, NextGen, and my goal is to work for a company where I can build my vision and grow. So that would be an example, just fill in the blanks. And yeah, so that's, Tim, you're an expert at elevator speeches. So I want you to throw in, because I know that one of the things that Tim does is he works really closely with young professionals that are just getting into professional organizations. We're heavily involved in the corporate growth, who has chapters in every major city. And one of the very first things that they teach you is when you come in and you become a young professional member of this group is how to network. And they talk a little bit about this. Oh, you're on mute.
All right. The importance is that, you know, you very quickly you've told the person why I'm here. And because often when you meet people, you have a very short period of time with them. And so who am I? What do I do? Why am I here? How can we connect for the next meeting? You know, and it's key. The other thing that Angie mentioned too was researching the company and the job. I would, you know, you more often than not, you will know the person that you're interviewing with, look them up on LinkedIn and look at their bio before you go in there. You might find out you're connected somehow. You know, maybe you have a connection, and that's the beauty of continually building up your LinkedIn profile. You might find out you're connected through somebody, you know, a couple degrees of separation. And then the last is sort of a, you know, thank you letter and a follow-up. But then the another couple things on the elevator speech that Angie did touch on is have several. And, you know, what she's a, you know, a 30-second one, a 1-minute one, a 5-minute one, you know, to be able to, you know, talk and explain why you're there. Why should the person listen to you? And you can Google elevator speeches and find others, because you want one that fits you. But, you know, you could have several, just like you could have several resumes, and we'll get to that too. So on to resumes. Scarlett, you want to run with us?
Hey, hi everyone, my name's Scarlett. So based off of your major, there's definitely specific resumes that follow through with it. Traditionally, if you're business major or finance, anything, not finance or engineering, anything that's more technical, not as, I would say, individualistic, is going to be a one-paged resume. And based off of your colleges, I don't know if they provide you with this template. If not, I know we have one. This is my resume. Not as updated, but this is the one that my business school gave us. And this one is specifically for the industry I want to go into, which is investment banking. So obviously I've concealed everything down to one page. You want to make sure that at the top you have your first and last name and then all the information to reach you. And then you'll get into all like your school credentials, whether you have majors, minors, any scholarships you have, make sure to put the amount that you have. And then you get into professional experience. This is where you can put in past job experience, recent internships, anything of that sort. When you do that as well, it's really important in the description of them how you persuade the reader like what you did. Like, so I have here Hardesty at the top. It's one of my most recent internships, and I could have written researched companies, but that wouldn't really give a good description to anyone looking over my resume. So you really want to use words that show that you've done work. So implemented, researched, built, contribute, engaged, reached. Like, you also want to try to show as much quantitative data as you can. So if you doubled sales for a team that you worked with, be like, I improved sales by this much, or increased profits by like marginally this amount. It's really important because then at least that's like a measure of something you can do. Next, professional development. If everyone's here and is in college or done things in high school, any volunteering, this would all go here. So as part of being at Arizona State University, I have engaged in quite a few clubs and organizations that definitely show that I'm interested in the field I'm going into, because a big part in going into industry is showing that you're interested in it. And I know even if your hard skills aren't developed yet, it's really important to show that you know what's going on in the business. Something they always stress to me in my classes is that, you know, read the Wall Street Journal every day. Listen to a podcast when you're doing your morning routine, just about like what's going on in the markets. Just keep up with certain companies you're interested in. I personally am very invested into AI companies and tech. So I try to do most of my reading on tech companies and see what's going on then, because in an interview, it's very common of a question for someone to ask, like me in finance, what's going on in the markets? Or can you name me a recent deal that went down, M&A deal? And if I'm caught off guard with that, I'm probably not going to get the internship, because it doesn't really show that I want to work in this field. So it's really important to have that knowledge, and these professional developments help me through that. And then in skills and interest, for skills, you want to stick to hard skills. I've even had some repression of putting Excel on my resume, just because, you know, everyone can open an Excel file and work on a spreadsheet. Just depends how technical you are with it. I have worked a lot in Excel, and I know how to code in Excel, so that is a hard skill that I'm quite comfortable putting in on my resume. And then of course I've got Tableau, Dynamics, ATS, and I'm bilingual. On interest, this is the part of the resume, I guess it's probably like the most unique part to yourself, the one that you can kind of show who you are a little bit. So I'm really into tennis, cooking, playing the piano. A big hobby of mine is philosophy. I'm adding a philosophy minor. And so that's something you like to put, because whoever you're conducting, you're interviewing with, they might look at that and what if they also play tennis? Well, that's a connection that you have. And obviously the interview is about making a connection. It's really important to try to get that and also show that you care about your industry.
And before we go on to the creative example, one of the things I wanted to bring out here that's really important, I think this applies to each of you, is, or can apply to each of you, is I can't tell you how many times I will see a resume, and because the writer doesn't think, the candidate doesn't think it's that important, it might just say Starbucks, I just worked there from June to August. It doesn't, instead of saying, it's under the barista. Yeah, what did I do? I was a barista there. I built customer relationships. It takes a little bit of time, but I think you can say something positive about any job you have. What did you do that was different? Did you just come to the work every day, or did you come to work and make it a better place? And I think that's pretty cool. Anyways, so on to a creative example in Scarlett.
Right, so for the creative resume, this one would apply so the example we have here, obviously this was a culinary student, and for this, since it's something that you can capture with an image, it would be more difficult to show your employer all the dishes or things that you've made without having pictures of it, just because presentation is a big aspect of working in the restaurant business, anything you do with that. Same thing if you were an artist. So you kind of have to show off your work. So since that's also part of it, you're going to have multiple pages because pictures take up a lot, and it's good to have separate pages for things. So if you were in a more creative major, I would highly, like, this is what you would do. You can play more with the color scheme of the background, whereas the traditional resume, just keep it black and white. Don't try to play with colors. Don't mess with the formatting. For this creative resume, I feel like this does show in a little bit of how you will work in that industry. So maybe if you were to go in with a very strict template like the one before, they might not even think of you as creative, because this is kind of a way for you to show what you're made of, what you're capable of. So it's kind of like a technical analysis. You can show off your creative side and have fun. Also make sure everything's readable, of course. That would be this one.
Then the other thing is then the references.
Right. So references are really important for any resume. So for this one, if you worked in past restaurants, sous chef, culinary, whatever, you can name them here. And it's really, people reach out to the references you put on your resume. And I know on my traditional resume, I don't put the references on it because there's not enough room for it. And usually that would be something maybe done in the job application. But for this, since it's a very important part of the process, because you're designing and you're working and it's a very different working environment, you would name them here. Make sure you have all of the contact information correctly. Yeah, that's for references.
And the other thing too is I think Scarlett's right. Normally you wouldn't provide your references when you're sending your resume in if they weren't requested. But I would have your resume, I would have your references already typed, ready to go. Because if a company asks you for something, whatever it is, you want to respond immediately. You know, because that's an indicator to them. If you take a day or two, they're going to say, well, geez, this person must not want to really work here, or we need somebody that can work a little faster than that. So you should be prepared. So now on to the number 5, the social media. And Scarlett, why don't you run us down that?
Great. So for social media, obviously the platform that you guys would probably all be using the most for professional development would be LinkedIn. If you don't already have one, it's very important that you make one. I started making mine freshman year of high school, put in all my job experience. It's kind of a roadmap to where you are now. So on a resume, the more you work, you're going to put your more recent experience that pertains more to your major or industry. For LinkedIn, I would be able to put that I worked at In-N-Out, I worked at Starbucks, things that show career development. It is very important. However, this is not a social media platform. It's not a place that you can post about how you feel. It's not Twitter. Make sure that when you're on it, all of your links to it, or where you put your LinkedIn link, is on a very neutral platform. It's also very important to manage your other social media accounts. So I'm sure most of you have Facebook and Instagram, Snapchat. Really just be aware of what you're putting out there. If you are leaving negative comments on other people's posts, just maybe even liking wrong videos, that will get brought up in a background search. So it's really important that you monitor your decisions and try to stay away from trolling or being abrasive online. I would recommend that you guys switch most of your accounts to private if it's something that you don't want your employers to see.
And let me jump in there real quick. There are employers out there that will go look at your public social media. And I'd say with the larger companies, that's probably a standard in the interview process. That's how they will vet the company. And from an actual experience that we're aware of, there was a large bank national bank that acquired a wealth management firm, and the bank went in and went through all of the financial advisors' social media accounts. If they had something on there from when they were in college that didn't look appropriate, they were summarily fired. No, I mean, there's no appeal process. They were just tossed. And it was an advantage to the bank because it reduced their workforce. It made their deal even better. And these were people that had graduated from great schools, had great backgrounds, many of them masters, they were already licensed professionals. And that's just the way it went. So you always want, when you work for somebody, you need to represent yourself. In many ways, you're always representing the company. So you got to be careful. The other thing, Angie, you want to pick up, talk a little bit about the LinkedIn, take that a little bit further?
Yeah, the first thing is to have a presence, and that also goes with having a professional styled photo of yourself. So there's definitely, all you have to do is go and Google what a professional headshot looks like. There's a lot of different styles. They're all acceptable. Probably just some, cropped photo on the back of a, speedboat holding a umbrella drink is not the choice I would use, or maybe a picture you and your dog. I mean, there's definitely things that are okay for, unless you're a dog walker, but there are definitely things that are more appropriate for LinkedIn. And I will tell you that every single interview before you walk in that door, they're looking to see if you are on LinkedIn and what kind of picture you have. And so give yourself, I know you guys are well equipped in taking selfies or having people take pictures of you. So take a look at that. Don't ignore your LinkedIn account. As you change jobs, update it. If you don't have a job, just say there is a profile. There are things that you can indicate that say that you're looking for a job, or that you are actively seeking internships, or you are actively seeking to do something. Go ahead and brand that in your statement. You can be absolutely authentic in your statement and say exactly what you're looking for. There's also ways to connect. You can connect right now. Connect with your professors. Connect with people who you went to school with, or previous mentors, or people that you've worked with before. Start connecting with professionals that you are interested in working for, and connect with us after this seminar is done. And if you ever want to reach out to us and ask us a question about how to present yourself and network, then you can always contact us directly. And then everybody that ever went to Samueli School, I think that you should connect with, because it's an astounding group of students, and you guys are all going to go really far, and you're in the right place and time to do that. So that's what I would have to say about that. Anything else, Tim, about?
Yeah, the other thing I would throw in too is for each of your individual pursuits, find the other professional networks in that group. Maybe it's an aerospace network, or maybe it's a graphic artist network, or it's a marketing group, and get involved in those, and then LinkedIn with those people. Expand your brand, land and expand, as we say. So let me go through the last part, and then we'll pause for your questions. And what I did is provided our contact information. There's our LinkedIn. So this is your homework today. You're going to go link in with myself, Angela, or Scarlett. But then also the resume critique. If you have not had a critique of your resume done, I suggest I'll make you this offer. If you send it to Brianna at our office, who probably prepares 100 profiles a month to submit to clients, where we're trying to get them to interview people. So she's very good at this. If you submit this to her, we will come back and give you a critique on your resume, or make some suggestions to help you tune it up to get ready. So now we're at that part of questions. And what can we answer? So I'll wait so you can come off mute.
Can you go back one more slide? Yeah, right there. I had a question for Scarlett in regards to resume building. So like after I mean, I graduated in 2017, and I'm pretty much like filling up my resume. Do you think it'd be a good idea to already take off like the high school part? Like I have a chunk of Samueli and like being on the honors program, doing the alumni program, doing soccer and things like that. Do you think
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so I would definitely do that. When I first came to ASU, that was something that I was advised to do right away. They were like, everything that you did in high school, take off your resume, which I was like, well, then what's gonna go on my resume? I am 18 and I have no other experience now. You just kind of have to start building it, and eventually it will kind of develop into more, and it'll be done by, it, but I was helping one of my friends write a resume for being a teacher, and she had a ton of stuff on there from high school, and it was like a 4-page long resume.
Mm-hmm.
And I instantly was like, okay, we've got to completely start over. It probably took us like 3 hours to condense everything and keep what she wanted, what was important. She had worked 13 jobs by the time she was 18. So there was a lot to do. And at that point, it was just trying to figure out what was the longest job, because that shows that you're a loyal worker. Where did you have the most experience, and what was the most technical job? I think you mentioned soccer. You can definitely keep that on it, just like an interest. If that's something that you did and really enjoyed, I would definitely keep it on there. You never know if someone you're interviewing with played soccer, is really a big fan of soccer. I know I come from a soccer family, so if I saw that on someone's resume, I would be very prone to bring it up and talk about soccer.
Let me add one thing to that, and I would suggest, I think Scarlett's right. Is over time that becomes smaller on your resume, and you move more to your professional career. But I would probably carry that Samueli badge for a long time. It's a pretty special place.
Yeah.
And I think it also says something to the community that you're somebody that's worked really hard. So I would probably leave it on there. Because also, again, we're looking for keywords. And I think we talked a little bit about on the resumes, the keywords are important. Because the recruiters are using optical character recognition to filter through those, and they may be looking for Samueli, or maybe you had honors there. You might have mentioned charter school. That might be something that pops out. So that's just an idea. Did that give you a good answer?
It did. Thank you, Scarlett and Tim. I'll be sure to send it by Brianna.
Please. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. I told Brianna she was doing it tonight. She said, great. She's looking forward to it. So Brianna joined us 2 years ago and is a recent graduate from Cal State Fullerton. So she's learning a lot about going through resumes.
Thank you.
But I have a hard time getting her to talk in public. So my next goal is to get her to be on these calls with us, because she's very good at this stuff also. So it's good stuff. Any other questions?
Yes, I was going to ask, what would you recommend or say is the appropriate way to ask for a reference letter or a letter of rec from, be it employers or like professors? It's always very tricky to ask. So.
Oh, that's very good. Let me say two things. I'll turn over to Angie, who's really good at this. Is I would definitely ask for someone that liked what you did. So, but I think it's important that the other thing I would say is the people that you've worked for, keep up that relationship, just like LinkedIn. You may need that, reference a couple of years from now, but Angie, some thoughts?
Yeah, no, there's nothing wrong with getting a reference letter from a coworker, right? That says a lot. A lot of times it is difficult to get one from
Mhm.
a superior, you know, if they've come and go, or maybe, I mean, obviously, if you can get one from your manager, that's ideal. But it's acceptable to get somebody that works side by side with you, because when we call references, the first thing we say is, what was your role with the candidate? And they will say, oh, we worked on the same team. And so that's very valuable information for that person to really tell how you work together. And you know, did you show up? You know, were you moody? Were you, I mean, actually don't get into that, but the kind of questions that we ask from references are, what was your role when you worked with them? How long did you work with them? How did this person handle challenges? What was this person's greatest achievements? If you could work with them again, would you work with them? So those kinds of things, they're leading questions. And because there's a very limited amount of things you can actually ask a person for job references. There are rules about that. But those are the questions that we ask. And so think about when you're getting somebody that's going to get a phone call, how would they respond to those questions? And then obviously, like Tim said, stay in touch with people. I mean, there's no reason not to stay in touch with your past colleagues. You know, just say, you know, we're going to help each other along the way. We've had a great working experience. Don't burn bridges. Stay connected professionally through LinkedIn, or if you had a great working experience with somebody, just know that they might come in handy to talk about the work that you guys did together. And then also, just in terms of references, and I didn't get to this earlier, is a lot of times employers are going to do a background check. Now, that sounds very intimidating because it sounds like a detective is going to start, you know, snooping around. But most of these times, these are outsourced to third-party companies. And the things that they're looking at are, you know, what's your credit score? Did they verify the jobs you've had before? If you said that you worked at this company for a year, they're going to call and confirm that you were actually employed at that company. They're going to look to see if you have a criminal record in the last 10 years. They're going to verify that you've got an employment. So if you're a high school graduate and a university graduate, they're going to call and verify that you actually did graduate and that those are legitimate diplomas. And let's see, and I think that's pretty much it. That's like the kind of, I guess, the some that was seen kind of intrusive and scary, but for the most part, they're pretty benign. One of the things that we do, we've had an experience that for whatever reason in the past, you know, it didn't, a thorough background check didn't happen. And really all we needed to do was Google that person's name to realize that they had, well, they had a newspaper headline that was not very flattering. So sometimes it's not in the background check, it's in the media that we found out that this person was part of a business deal that went bad. But most of the time, the background check will be handled by your employer. So that's another thing that they check in addition to resumes. And it's almost, you know, I guess once you get into your professional career, you can anticipate that a background check is going to be conducted.
Kind of to hop in on that, just to clarify the question, were you asking about how to go about to ask like a professor for a reference?
I just meant it as a general, like how do we go about that? Like
Okay.
what would be an appropriate way? Yeah.
Yeah, to like ask a professor.
Or an employer, either
Yeah.
one.
Okay, so I've done both recently. So I know for your professors, I don't know what colleges you guys attend to, but if you guys ever have to work on like a capstone project or a thesis project by the time you graduate, it's really important to build connections. I would recommend before you ask someone for a reference, because I know a lot of people go to professors and they just ask for a reference because it was maybe a really difficult class. and the professor doesn't know who they are. So at that point, it's hard on the referee. So you kind of want to take into account their perspective. So definitely go to office hours, have them know you, put in the work. I know it was last year for one of my classes, there was this big extra credit opportunity, and it required probably about 10 hours of work. So no one else took it but me. And I did it, and I worked with the professor on it, got it all done, submitted it, got a grade, got the extra credit. But while doing that, it showed the professor that I wanted to do well and that I wanted to have a good grade in the class. And I was able to connect and talk with that teacher about it. So I've asked him for a letter of rec, and he has written me one. And it makes it easier for them too, because he felt like, oh yeah, she's a hard worker. She did all this extra work. Like, this is how she did her presentation. For one of the classes I'm in now, because everything's on Zoom for me, they encourage class discussion, and I always make sure that I'm talking and interacting with the class and the teacher. And after the class, sometimes I'll stay and talk to the teacher about any questions or clarifications I had. And at this point, now he knows my name and is like, Scarlett, do you have anything to add? Or Scarlett, I'm interested to hear what you're saying next week. So I've already established that relationship. And for that teacher, he will be working with me on one of my thesis projects. So I've kind of established that relationship. And so now I feel comfortable if I were to go out for a job and ask, hi, like, hey, professor, would you be willing to write me a reference paper for this job? Name the job, name what it is. And then when you ask them to give you the reference paper, you're not supposed to have it sent to you, just in case, because you can make adjustments to it. So an employer won't always trust that. So always verify with your employer the email they want it sent to, because that has to go straight through them depending on the job. And then so that's for like professors and school going about it.
Good comments. Another question,
Yeah, I have a question.
please.
What happens if you can't find a job after you graduate? Should we keep trying or go to grad school?
Ooh, real good question. That's a great question. You know, probably sure there's a lot of specifics, you know, to deal with that. But I would, right now, there's a lot of opportunities, I think, out there in the workforce, especially as people are reloading. And sometimes it's smarter. I think it depends on you individually, but I think sometimes it's smarter to get a couple of years of experience before going into grad school. Might also help you financially a little bit better too. But it depends. I mean, let's say you had a scholarship to go to grad school and it was, you know, economics were taken care of. That might be different. But the other thing that I guess I tell people too is if you're looking at going to grad school and if the job prospects aren't great today, are you going to go to grad school for a major that is going to have great job prospects? You know, I'd hate to see people getting going through that whole process and completing it and not being in a major where you know, people are getting, you know, a lot of jobs are coming out of that major. So I would definitely be careful of that for sure. But I think that's probably a case by case situation. You know, I would even look to maybe even some of the people, Nora, maybe the support services at Samueli. They probably have some good ideas to look at on an individual basis. I guess that's not a black and white answer. I apologize. But I think there's a lot of opportunities. And I think what we're trying to communicate here is build yourself into a brand where somebody wants to hire you. And you don't have to have, you know, an accounting degree or be a nurse or something like that our recruiter have, or an engineer. you know, I think it's attitude and how hard you're going to work, and you establish that. 3 of my kids didn't have business degrees, and they're all working for a financial services company. Now, I thought they should have business degrees. I didn't even know what a communications major was. They've been very successful. You know, their companies need all kinds of players, you know, and there's a lot of opportunities out there. So hopefully we're communicating that. You know, I think if you show up and you've got a good attitude, a lot of opportunities out there, I think, for getting hired. So
no, I totally agree with Tim there. You know, when you start out, you might not be going for the job that you ultimately want, but if you get into the industry that you want and you get the skills and the knowledge base of being with that industry, it's going to be impacting your skills. And it's all about what are your tradable skills? What's your currency, right, in terms of your skill set? And working in an industry, you know, whether it's aeronautic, you know, you're lots of different kinds of engineering, lots of different kinds of businesses out there. That's why I say when you go onto LinkedIn, like Scarlett was saying as well, pay attention to your market, pay attention to those companies, follow what they're doing. And you don't have to have the perfect company or the perfect job at that company. That company may hold all sorts of pathways for you once you get a foot in the door. So sometimes you just want to go for the biggest, you know, company in the industry, understand what makes that engine run, get that knowledge base underneath you, and that's a banner on your resume. I was listening to, you know, the CEO of Netflix just put out a book, and I can't think of the name of it, but it's a really big book that everybody's interviewing him right now. And one of the things that he did that he credits his career for is being able to cannibalize and disrupt his own business, because he was like competing with Blockbuster back in the day when people were going in, and it was before streaming. But his first job was at a software company, and he served coffee at the software company. And when he was there, he was learning about the internet and storage and what things were happening in the 1990s. He worked for a tech startup. And then he knew, even as he started Netflix, he knew that streaming was the way that video was going to go. And that was 20 years in advance. But he attributed his conceptualizing, his understanding of the future just by serving coffee and, you know, having that kind of a job at the right kind of a company. So in a way, you never really know where your career is going to take you. But if you want to love your job and you want to be passionate about it, you can still go and work in that industry and you'll be fulfilled. It's a lot of it is just being in that spot, and opportunities present themselves that way.
Another question? That was a great question, by the way. We're a quiet group tonight.
I think stemming off of that question, so for me, I would be going directly into grad school. Would the job opportunities or like hiring be the same if I'm like, well, I'm still a full-time student, but I would like this opportunity? Would I approach that the same way as if I had just graduated and was doing absolutely nothing, or would I approach it differently? I don't know if that makes sense. I'm so sorry.
Try that again, maybe.
Okay, so I'm thinking, say I want to apply for Hardesty. Would I approach the application process more deliberate to what I'm studying at like grad school, or like what I'm trying to do, rather than straight out of undergrad where like everything is very hectic and I'm not 100% sure how to maneuver in the workplace.
Okay, so let me rewind that, and then I'll let Angie jump in to back me up when I tell you the wrong thing. No, but seriously, so would you, if I'm reading you right, do you approach a job while you're in school different from a job while you're out of school? Is that close? Okay.
Yes.
So, you know, it's probably going to be what's available, but I would think, let's say you had a specific industry that you wanted to work in. I would highly recommend trying to get a job in that. If you're working through school, get a job in that industry, whatever it is, so that you can start learning about it. I think that'd be a big help. It also looked good on your resume. But at the same time, maybe the economics aren't there, or the availability is not there. It depends on what's near your school. That industry maybe is in San Diego and you're going to school in Bakersfield. So that's not going to be practical. But I would think if you can go work for something related, it doesn't have to be a direct, but maybe it's a little bit different. I went into accounting. I paid for college by working for a law firm. It's related, but it's not the same thing. It helped me see that I didn't want to be a lawyer. So that, I guess I got a benefit out of that. And instead became a CPA. I like doing that. But I would definitely try to somehow tie it into where you're going. I think that's pretty positive if you can do it, if it's available. Angie?
So Jasmine, what are you studying?
I'm a women gender studies major / Chicano studies.
Yeah, actually there's, I would say that if you're going to go into, so are you going to stay in academics, do you think, or are you going to get a PhD in something? What do you think?
End goal, I am thinking PhD.
Wow.
Okay.
Very cool.
Okay. Well, then that sounds like something like in academics. If there's something that you could get a job working with your professor, or in a supporting or some sort of profit, if you're doing internships or any sort of work at all, even if it's clerical work, if you can work for one of the nonprofits that advance or help or focus on that area, there's a lot of nonprofits out there, and you can find them on LinkedIn, and you can find internships on LinkedIn as well as on Indeed, Glassdoor, all of those hunting networks. Just so you know, internships are listed out there. A lot of them are not paid, but you're going to be developing your skill set and your knowledge base, because it's a very cerebral and academic field in a way. I mean, I'm thinking that kind of thing would pivot into, civil liberties and social justice. I mean, those are kind of legal areas or political areas, if not of a level right now, to be honest. And this is something new, and again, you can find the references out there. What I've seen is there are a lot of companies, all of the big ones are hiring diversity officers. So you have your chief executive officer, you have your chief financial officer. Now every major Fortune 500 company out there has a chief diversity officer. That would be something that you could get into, or at least start working in that department in a company immediately with a bachelor's degree, and definitely with a master's degree. So go ahead and just look for, follow those companies that have that, hook up with people that have that title, connect with those people that have that title and see what they're doing. So there's a whole new, I guess, just field. And it used to go through like human resources in a way. HR handled the heavy lifting of diversity in an organization. Now they realize that that's not enough. And so you see a whole department just about valuing diversity, whether it's age related or gender related, or for women, or for people of color, you name it. There's that whole inclusiveness that they are making an effort and creating positions to address.
That help?
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Good. We have another question?
Yeah, I do have one. So I know you said, I know earlier it was mentioned that pretty much like whatever was done in high school, right? Like remove that off the resume. What about like an internship, from like an office internship, right? Where like you work directly with like other people, like Excel sheets and stuff like that, basically. Would that still be like relevant when it comes to applying for college internships, or would that still be like something you might want to remove since it was a high school thing?
I think you could include that. I think it depends on what you're applying for and to make it relevant. I think one of the things we may have touched on before is you might have multiple resumes depending on how you're trying to present yourself. And that's okay. That's okay. We do that all the time because we try to take that resume and say, how do you connect the dots to the job that's being offered? Mm-hmm. And maybe that Excel worksheet, you learned how to do pivot tables. That might be really relevant to that job. So I think you can say that. And you guys are young enough that I think showing the jobs you had during high school is fine. Now, I think it gets a little bit unwieldy if you had 13 jobs in high school. You might want to whittle it down to the ones that are most relevant for that presentation, and then down at the bottom, say something like, and I had various other jobs. I think if you can find relevance to the job, that's probably the most important thing.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Angie?
I had.
Oh, please. Okay, next question.
I had one more question in regards to like, what if you get stuck in like the internship phase, or like that seems to be the only thing offered? How much is enough until we can expect an internship to turn into an actual job?
Angie?
I'm not really sure. I mean, I personally was never, I wish I had the ability to do unpaid internships, but I was always working a couple of jobs through college. And so as much as I wanted to do the internships, it just wasn't financially feasible for me. But I mean, I would say, personally, you're gonna know, right, when it's and you're not learning anything anymore. I mean, you're there to learn. It's not just to give your blood, sweat, and tears, and die on that sword. You're there to learn. The internship should definitely be a two-way street where you're learning things and you're gaining skills. So it's, what skills are you there to learn, because they're going to have you offload work. And when you've maxed that and you then have those valuable skills, and I would say 6 months. I think Scarlett, you're on your second or third. She's when finance is very internship oriented. They do a new internship every 6 months. There's something about that rule. Like, they don't really expect you to do it for more than 6 months unpaid. And then they kind of go and find another one.
Let me jump in here for a minute, Angie, because this could be an Arizona versus California difference. Because I believe in California you have to be paid. I don't think I don't think you can have unpaid internships anymore. Are you guys seeing unpaid internships?
I had an internship before where it wasn't paid, but I did come across one other internship that was paid, but
Yeah,
I didn't end up taking it because I wasn't driving at the time and it was too far. Like I live in Santa Ana, California, and it was in Rancho Cucamonga.
that's a
So
long way.
yeah,
That's a long way and really bad traffic. But I believe, and if you have a question on that, maybe reach out to Nora. Nora, we can find out about that. I believe that was a law a couple years ago. I can check into that and send it back to you. But as far as I know, that could be California versus Arizona. And Angie and Scarlett are in Arizona.
Yeah, and well, and it depends too. I think a lot of internships have gone virtual. I know with Scarlett, the one that she's doing with an investment bank, it was supposed to be face to face, obviously, and now they're having her do all of her research virtually. So in the current environment, that might present some unique opportunity for you, actually, considering Southern California's, big sprawled out space. Why don't you open your your prospects a little bit, go online, start looking for internships that are out of your geographical space, because a lot of them, the majority of them, were probably virtual, and they will just work through projects like this.
You know,
so you don't have to have one there. You can look in Seattle or San Francisco or whatever, and if your resume is tight, you might get the interview for the internship.
yeah. Yeah, find that company that you want to work for, wherever they are, and it doesn't have to be in Santa Ana today. And then reach out to them, and that's true. They may have a remote internship. Example, let's say you liked electric vehicles, and so you found that Lucid is moved to Phoenix with a new plant. They're hiring people. You could reach out to Lucid and say, do you have internships? So it'd be in Phoenix, but you could work it from here, as an idea.
thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely open this opportunity is here that you can just kind of take down any sort of geographical obstacles that were there before that were requiring you to show up and take time away from school or, to get in a car. So might present a unique opportunity.
Any other questions?
So speaking of like geographical area, now that it's been brought up, actually, once like businesses start to reopen, like more physical contact is beginning to be made, like over the years, then once we're required to like start looking more and more towards our like geographical area, how do we find like a good internship that will that is more in our, like, how far do you guys think is reasonable to go? Like, if you live in like Orange County, is it like reasonable to like go to Riverside and then back, or is it or like how far do you guys think is like reasonable?
Well, in terms of how far to commute for
Yeah.
It has to fit in your schedule, right? I would definitely, as you're going through school, spending a lot of time commuting on the highway, that's got to be tough. So I always err on the try to work as close to home as you can, but you may have to travel, but it's got to fit into your work schedule. When I was in college, I worked in the afternoons. I had all my classes early morning, so I could work the afternoon. But my job was close to my home. I commuted to school, and my job ended up being close to home. But the challenge we have today is, of course, that was 100 years ago when there wasn't traffic. The challenge we have today is if you're going to drive to Riverside and back, depending on the time, you might be going against traffic, but that's tough going over the 91 to Riverside, for example. You could get caught in that. I mean, that's just some thoughts. So I think it's got to be, how is your class schedule laid out? How flexible is your class schedule?
Caesar, what is your major? What are you studying?
I am studying political science.
Okay.
Do you want to go to law school?
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully, like I can. The goal is to hopefully go into UCI. Like that's like the law school that I really want to attend, like as of right now. And I guess right now, like hopefully, like as I start getting more and more classes that's like under my belt and stuff like that. I'm also doing a volunteering and unpaid volunteering right now with for a state senator campaign.
Oh, cool.
So mhm.
That's good. A good experience.
Yeah, for sure. So I agree. Yeah. And then hopefully the idea is that once I start like graduating, maybe like or getting closer to my graduation, like sophomore junior years, I guess, right? Then hopefully I can like maybe intern as like a paralegal, since I know you don't need a law degree for that. So
yeah, because I would think there's
Oh,
opportunity.
there's so much work around law firms that you can do. I'll tell you. I know a lot of people started out just doing as a law clerk or some pretty basic stuff, and it either helped them, it definitely made the decision for them as to whether they wanted to continue in law or not, or definitely, what kind of law. So, but again, go ahead and start looking for those internships now. Look for any job in a law firm. Look for, it might be just managing their social media account. It might be, there's all sorts of jobs in firms. It doesn't matter what it is. You just have to be in those four walls. Like that's what I say when you say pick your company, follow, if you're gonna volunteer for somebody and you want to go to law school, just start looking for law firm jobs regardless of the position. So that will definitely help you in your career choice as you and your connections.
That's where also I think we're having, if you're in college looking for an internship, having the Samueli Academy on there, I think is a real plus.
Definitely.
Because they're going to look at that and say, okay, we know the students at the Samueli Academy have received a great education. And that's a real plus.
all right, thank you. That's actually really helpful. Thank you.
Good. Wow, we did something. That's
Yay.
good. We have another question?
Yeah, no, I just I encourage you to do that. I can't tell you, I work in hospitals, right? I spent most of my career working in hospitals. I can't tell you how many physicians that I worked with who started out, in housekeeping or as a paramedic or,
Great.
you name it, like any job in the hospital, they started out there and they were just like, oh, wow, I like this. Or, they made friends with somebody who encouraged them to, go to college or to study a certain thing. And then they went all the way and decided to be a physician, but they started out just working in the hospital as the very first job, registering patients in the admitting department. So if you know your direction, get any job there. I mean, you guys are entry level right now, so there's no shame in it, right? You just want to work for the company, and you would just be blown away. The people you meet on a daily basis, the conversations that you have, how much you just absorb by being in that environment.
In a place like a hospital, a good example, a larger institution, they have all kinds of jobs all hours of the day. Because I don't know, I guess remember when I was going to college, you get your class schedule. Now it's probably different if it's all remote now, but you get your class schedule, then you go build your job around your class schedule. And I think, if you hustle, if you're a hard worker, there are employers out there that will work with you because they want you to succeed too. Another question?
Just one more, but this is just like a quickie, like just like for Scarlett. You said that you review resumes, right? Like if we just like send you a message on LinkedIn, then they'll be more than happy to help us review our resumes.
Yeah, I can do that. I know they said, I know on the bottom they want you to send it to Brianna, but I will totally help you if you'd like.
All right, yeah. Do you also review LinkedIn accounts too?
I can review your LinkedIn. I'm sure Angela and Tim would be willing to do so as well, but I will definitely do it if you'd like.
Send it to any of us. Yeah,
All right, thank you.
happy to. Another question? Okay, so does everyone know what their homework is tonight? You are going to, you're going to go connect with Scarlett, Angie, and myself on LinkedIn, right? That's good. You all have LinkedIn accounts? Yes. If not, you're going to be learning how to do it. And then send it. And so now at the end of tonight, you'll have 3 new contacts, or maybe tomorrow, 3 new contacts. So that's good. And then you keep building on that. And then you make that part of your normal lexicon to talk to people. You have a LinkedIn account, and then go look them up and then connect with them. If you're interested in a particular industry, start looking them up. Look at law firms. Identify the law firms in the area that are practicing the type of law you're interested in, and connect with those people. Hey, it's fair on LinkedIn. You reach out and say, I'm a student in college. I'm on my way to law school. I'm looking for an internship. Is there something I can do at your firm? And what's the worst thing they could say? No. Okay, we're over that. But it takes all of you are in an exciting time, and you certainly have a great heritage. Any other questions? Okay. Then send us your resume for a critique. Send it to Brianna or any of us, and I'm happy to do that too. And we've certainly enjoyed this evening with you. It's been fun.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tim, Angie, Scarlett. We really appreciate it. I learned a lot. I'm sure the alumni learned as well. And we really appreciate it. And, because some of our students are just starting off school and they're getting used to remote, I know many more wanted to attend. So we're hopeful that we can continue collaborating and bringing these resources to our youth. And thank you so much for taking part of your evening to be with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you all. We wish all of you just the absolute unprecedented success. Enjoy your venture into the workforce.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Cool. Well, thank you, alumni. If we could do like a virtual round of applause. There we go.
There you go. Good deal.
Awesome.
Very cool.